okay, what is a win? What is a
Mhm.
W for Christmas? And strip it down to what is absolutely necessary. Christmas is about God coming here as the person Jesus to save us. We're celebrating the newborn King and he came here that he would rule in our hearts by faith and that we would live with him forever. You win at Christmas, not if everyone gets the food that they want and the exact present that they were hoping for, or whatever, that the house is perfectly clean when everyone arrives. If you can do those things, that's icing on the cake. But what is absolutely necessary is for us to believe in God's one and only Son who came here as Jesus to save us. If you have Christ in your heart by faith, you've won at Christmas, because that's what Jesus came here to do. He came to rule your hearts by faith. And if you got that and you have worshiped Jesus, that's a success. That's a win. I mean, that's a wrap for Christmas. And anything else is icing on the cake. So if we strip down expectations, just if we can do that, we've succeeded at Christmas. And if we can do that our whole lives, we've won at life, right?
You are listening to the Gird Up podcast, and I'm your host, Charlie Ungemach. To gird up is an ancient way of preparing oneself for hard work or a battle ahead, and that's exactly what we are doing here. We face the real challenges hitting young Christians today through a confessional Lutheran lens. We offer a grounding place on which to stand, and we bring the ancient, timeless truths of the Christian faith to the next generation. You'll find that we are an unapologetically Lutheran voice in the culture that is awash with generic Christianity. We do not compromise on biblical doctrine. We respect the experience of the church, and we recognize that it is our own responsibility to preserve the true Christian faith in our own time and to pass it on. We are pushing back with a clear confession of practical discipleship because we are convinced that Jesus is enough. If you want to be part of that mission, you're in the right place. Hit follow or subscribe, leave a rating and review, and share this episode with someone who needs a community just like this one. By the way, feel free to give us an honest review. 5-star reviews are great. Honest reviews are even better than that. If you haven't left a review or you haven't left a review in a while, please do consider leaving us another review. It helps us get more attention in the podcast world. If you'd like to support the work that we do here at Gird Up, please consider making a donation. We call it a cup of coffee donation because for the price of a cup of coffee, just $5, you can support the ministry we're doing here at Gird Up as we flood the internet with confessional content and prepare the people of God for whatever lies ahead. Go to www.girdupministries.com, scroll down to the bottom, select Buy Us a Cup of Coffee, and you can make your donation there. If you want to stay connected, sign up for the Gird Up Dispatch. It's our weekly email with updates, resources, and encouragement to help you stand firm in your faith. You'll find the sign-up link in the show notes below as well. Really, it all just runs through the same website link. So click on the website link down in the show notes below, and it'll take you where you need to go. Finally, if you've got suggestions or topics that you want to hear us address or people you want to hear me interview on the Gird Up podcast, please send those suggestions our way as well. Again, the link is down in the show notes below. With all of that said, pull up a chair, take a seat, and let's talk about Jesus for a while. We've got a variety of guests with us today. We're just going to go around the horn and let them introduce themselves. 3 gentlemen who I respect deeply, who I enjoy chatting with, and I'm just happy to see your faces, guys. It's been too long, and it's a joy to be sitting here chatting with you as well, especially as we ring in the Christmas season, I guess really the Advent season now and the Christmas season to come. So we'll start with you, Pastor Chester Reinemann from Alberta. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing all right, Charlie. Thanks for having me on.
Why
It's
don't you
good to
tell me a
be.
little bit? Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you tell me just a little bit about what you got going on up in Calgary? Those of you who listen to recent episodes, you heard Jacob, who's going to be on in just a second, talk about his work in Calgary. Chester, why don't you tell us a little bit about your church, what you got going on, what does life look like for you up there in the cold, dark north?
Yeah, so I'm a pastor of a Lutheran church in Calgary. Calgary's, if you're not familiar with Canada, there's not a lot of people living in Canada. It's a big country with just a handful of larger cities. Calgary is one of those cities. Our church is in kind of the lower income immigrant neighborhood side of the city, and our ministry reflects that. I was blown away when I first got here. There's that there's a prophecy and revelation about what heaven's going to be like, in every tribe and nation, and people are sitting, they're praising the Lamb, they're praising Jesus. That's kind of what this church feels like, with people from over 20 different countries worshiping. And we're not, there's maybe a couple hundred people at our church, but um, there's 20 different countries represented in our membership. So it blows me away. I'll find myself on the phone chatting with people in refugee camps in Africa in the middle of the night sometimes, because members will get me connected. Hey, you need to talk, you need to pray, you need to meet with this guy. And they're calling me up, it's like 1 a.m. It's crazy. But really exciting. I feel like I'm in over my head a lot, trying to navigate all the cultural differences. But really, really glad and feel very privileged to be sharing the good news of Jesus with all these different people groups here.
Awesome. Thank you, Chester. We've also got Pastor Isaiah Duff on the podcast today. What's up, Isaiah?
So Charlie, I am doing very well, thank you.
Now, you are in the also cold, dark north, but not quite as far up in the cold, dark north. Why don't you tell us a little about what you got going on?
Certainly. So I serve the saints at Salem Lutheran Church in Owasso, Michigan. Owasso it's a big enough place that people have heard of it, but not big enough to be, one of the big cities. So if you would look at a map of Michigan where you see the big cities and you would form a triangle between Lansing, Flint, and Saginaw, Owasso would kind of be at the base of that triangle. So about 14,000 people, not tiny, no middle of nowhere rural, but also not a huge place, which is nice because I don't like big traffic. But I'm privileged to serve a congregation that has a lot of history to it. So I've been here not quite a year and a half, and that's also the total length of my ministry, having graduated not that long ago from the seminary. And when I arrived, I was serving alongside a retired pastor, Pastor Randy Johnson. He recently completed his service among us, now fully retired. So I've recently picked up the reins as we head into this Advent and holiday season, and I'd say I am just prayerfully, humbly figuring out what it means to be a pastor here. But in the Midwest, so kind of your box standard, what you expect when you hear the name Lutheran.
Yeah. And those of us who are familiar with, I guess, more Lutheran circles recognize that Michigan tends to be a pretty culturally, see, this may be changing too, but culturally conservative place, and also with a lot of big old church buildings and so forth that retain a lot of the Lutheran heritage and tradition. My understanding is that your church is one of those places that has really retained a strong Lutheran identity over the years, and is, I don't know, what we would call more of a traditional Lutheran church as far as worship even and things like that. Is that true?
I would say to a degree. In general, I follow things out of the blue hymnal. We are a bit wanting for musical talent here. Before I arrived, there was some shake-up, and so we find ourselves often without an organist. But the Lord blesses us anyway, and so I do try to inculcate and some of the older traditions, but serving God's people. And again, I don't think, can't remember if I mentioned or not, but church was built in 1869, so a good chunk of
Wow.
history here. And if the Lord so blesses me that I stay here, I might stay to see to its 150th anniversary at some point. Of course, it's blessed to be here.
1869 is a long time.
hmm
It also says something um like, how long is the church? Well, let me ask this. How long has your church building been there?
So 1869 is when it was built. The German immigrants who started meeting as something of a quasi church go back a couple years before that, it's interesting reading some of the older documents. It was originally going to be a St. John's, but there's a million St. John's, so somewhere in there it got changed to Salem, so that stands out a little bit more. Although we also get confused as we have a Wells Church over in Ann Arbor, another one of those bigger cities that's named Salem.
The
For how many
home
years?
church of the great Connor Herder.
For how many years were the church documents in German? Do you know?
Oh, that would be kind of similar to the general trajectory of our synod, where that transition happens, especially World War I, World War II era, so that as of the 40s, things have moved mostly into English at that point. Uh, Although it historically in church, just like seeing some of the old newspapers and things was known as the German church, but it just the two kind of go hand in hand, German and Lutheran, just historically speaking.
Wow. Very cool. Lots and lots of history, lots to love. And then finally, we've got Jacob Klug. Jacob, you've been on the show several times recently. All you guys have been on the show before. But Jacob, give us a little insight into what's going on at Mountain View.
Yeah. So everything Chester said is obviously the same as far as location. Same big city, not that many big cities in Canada, but a different side of town means different ministry. Many people may know that there are lots of German and Norwegian immigrants all over the Midwest in America, right? Like places like Michigan and Wisconsin. But there's also a lot of them from Saskatchewan and Manitoba and Alberta, Germans and Icelandic people and Norwegians who end up forming Lutheran congregations in rural places in Western Canada. And I would say a good, high percentage of people in my church are either that's who they are, or that's the kind of family they're from. This kind of historic Lutheran background, just not of the Midwest, but the far upper Midwest variety. And that's kind of come into contact with the fact that the city has now grown and we're right on the edge. And so now we're engaging with people in town, and I've got new folks who are more, city oriented, mixing with my other folks who are more country oriented, which is pretty fun. And so we'll see. I don't know what the future of Mountain View looks like in a lot of ways, but I know that some things will be the same, and Christmas will be the same.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a good segue into what we're sitting here to talk about this morning. As we head toward, it's not morning. That's okay. If you're listening, you can imagine that it's morning and we're all fresh and drinking coffee.
Morning somewhere.
That's right. We are headed into the heart of December. We're headed into the heart of Advent. And this is a time of the year that is so full of blessings and hope and cheer and joy and all that kind of stuff. And it also gets a lot of attention as being a commercial holiday. You get people talking about keeping the Christ in Christmas, and all those are good things. But for a lot of people, this time of year tends to just be completely overwhelming, or it's something other than entirely joyful and happy. And as somebody who really, really loves Christmas and all the traditions around Christmas and so forth, I will freely admit that I am already a little bit struggling, even emotionally, knowing that this is the first time it's the first time ever that I'm not going to see my folks in person at all over the Christmas holidays. I got to see them at Thanksgiving, which was a wonderful blessing and a little bit of a surprise. And I also recognize that I will be surrounded by people that I enjoy and love here during the holidays. But it is something that can be challenging for a lot of folks. It's the time of year that can be challenging to a lot of folks. I wasn't necessarily planning on introducing the podcast or this episode this way, but as I was digging into the reason maybe that we would have a conversation like this one about keeping Christmas right, I came across some statistics that really surprised me. But then the more I thought about it, I thought maybe that's not actually as surprising as it struck me at first. And here's some of those statistics. According to the American Psychological Association, around 40% of North Americans report an increase in stress during the holiday season. I think we can understand where that comes from. But 30% of those people report experiencing an increase in, not of the same people. 30% of North Americans report experiencing an increase in anxiety, and 20% report experiencing an increase in depression. Now, some of those overlap, not all of those overlap. I also found it interesting that according to YouGov, which is the political polling agency, which you'll hear about them a lot when it comes around to election time. But according to YouGov, 24% of those diagnosed with mental health disorders indicate that their symptoms increased a lot during the holiday season, and 40% of them indicate that their symptoms increased somewhat. So we're talking about half of people who have some sort of mental health disorder are significantly worse off during the holiday season than they are the rest of the year. 19% of all respondents to this YouGov poll, regardless of their mental health diagnosis, so whether they have mental health issues or not, 19% of all people reported that the Christmas season has a fairly negative impact on their mental health, and 7% of Americans reported that it has a very negative impact on their mental health. I was not able to find any studies that, or even any evidence that this reality is any different for Christians than it is for unbelievers either. So the reality is that the Christmas season, which it's one of the most festive seasons both for our culture and for our church, is actually a very negative thing for a lot of people. And I think that it is, like many other things, that our proper understanding of what the festival season actually is and what our role is in it, and most importantly, Christ's role in that celebration, can change the way we interact with things like Christmas. So I want to have a conversation about keeping Christmas right, in quotation marks, keeping Christmas right. It's a quotation from A Christmas Carol. At the end of the book, Ebenezer Scrooge learns to keep Christmas right, and he keeps it all year round. And it's, of course, a book written by a Christian as well. I want to talk about keeping Christmas right because I think keeping our eyes and hearts in the proper place is not only going to decrease a lot of these symptoms where people are not enjoying the holiday season, but I think it also is going to have a tremendously good impact on our spiritual lives, on our faith, and on our hearts. And I brought you guys here to talk about that because it's something very close to me and something that I think you guys probably have some insight on. So, my first question that I'll just toss out to the floor here: why do you think the holiday season, which is supposed to be a season of light for everybody, particularly for Christians who recognize this is the season of the incarnation, why does it have such a negative impact on so many people? Based on these numbers, we're talking maybe even up to half of the people in America.
I've got one thought. Out here, there are a lot of students, a lot of people who've just moved here, a lot of people who are separated from their families. And so they're living a life, and it does not look like the Christmas they see on TV because they're here on a temporary visa, because they're here and they don't have a great community yet, because they're here and they're not sure if they want to be Catholic like they were raised, or if they want to be nothing, or who knows what. Like there's a lot of uncertainty that and isolation that they're experiencing day to day. And then that's very different than the like cohesive monoculture you see in like the old Christmas movies.
That's interesting. I feel that. I feel it as you say it. It is my reality, and I'm not Vicar. I'm not saying Vicar year makes me lonely. That's not true at all. But it is my reality for Christmas this year is very different from what I grew up with, what I've even been blessed to have from one year to the next as an adult. And it is also very different from It's a Wonderful Life or The Bishop's Wife or Miracle on 34th Street and those stories that I'm seeing as well. It's an interesting point, Jacob. I think you're probably onto something. Go ahead, Chester.
Yeah, and it's right along the lines of being separated from family. What a lot of people associate Christmas with is is family get-togethers and gift giving. But those are the things that often stress people out or make people sad the most. Like everyone, like you get around the table and there's family drama. There's the cousin who is just ripping the family apart because there's the uncle, right, with the weird political opinions, and he brings something up at the table, and it's like, oh no, not again. And so it's stressful to get everyone together, and then there's the complicated family dynamics that you not normally have to see these people, and now you do have to see them. Hopefully, you enjoy them, but there's always something going on. The other thing I know a lot of families who are just missing. They're missing somebody at the family gathering, and whether the person died or moved away, or they're just now estranged from the family for whatever reason. It's really difficult because they're all of a sudden there's a missing spot at the table, and now you have to deal with that. And so not just drama, but the grief of losing someone. I know a friend right now who, you know, every year up until this year, her father-in-law would have the whole family, that side of the family, over for like a Christmas meal. So the grandparents or the father and mother-in-law, well, he's passed now, and this just the mother-in-law left, and she doesn't have it within her to host the family gathering as usual. All the cookies they normally bake and all the foods, the special foods that only came out at Christmas, she's not going to make because she's still, steeped in grief. So so the whole family is now affected. The gathering that should have happened or normally would have isn't. Yeah. It's really tough for a lot of people this time of year.
Isaiah, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think when people think Christmas, the first thing that comes to mind is the visuals, right? You think of the tree and the lights or the candles. You think of people going shopping. We have Thanksgiving and then the Death Parade into Black Friday shopping. Although maybe more, it's all a rush to the store to click for Cyber Monday. I don't know. But there's just this rush of all these things that people, take in. And I think about one of the phrases in First John, the lust of the eyes, that there's all these things people are searching for, looking for, and they want to see them, they want to hold them, they want to take them, but it's fallow, it's empty. So that if people are obsessed with that appearance of things, that there isn't, something real under it, whether it's the picture perfect family, but everyone actually secretly hates each other, or there's some family drama that's divided people, or it's the picture perfect Christmas, where the pocketbook is tight, and we went into debt to get these presents, or even just the rest of it all. I think that people come into it expecting it like it's going to be all of your hopes and dreams satisfied. It's Christmas. You're supposed to be happy. And then it doesn't, because often the version that people have of it is something quite hollow, or just and the guiding observation to that is I don't know about you guys, I haven't observed this with people that I know, but just driving around, you've seen less of Christmas decorations, and just a couple months prior, more of Halloween decorations. So there's almost like an undercurrent from what the brothers have noted thus far, of like a culture of despair. People recognize I'm sad. I feel this connection with death. I feel this connection with the grim, but then the bright and joyful and happy maybe even just seems fake. I know authenticity is a word that gets tossed around a lot. So again, that phrase from First John, the flesh of the eye, or the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh is what strikes me thinking about your question.
Yeah, I'll toss this out to all you guys. Why do you think that is? I think you're onto something, Isaiah. I think you're spot on when you make the observation Halloween decorations seem to be more popular than ever, and Christmas decorations maybe aren't. I was thinking the same thing. It's my first Christmas down in South Carolina, but I've been a little disappointed by the number of Christmas lights and things like that. I don't know if that's true everywhere, but it's certainly true here. Why is this shift in our culture happening? Is it... I don't know. I'm going to ask you, why is this shift in our culture happening?
Here's a theologically loaded and obtuse sounding answer. And so you can push back or tell me to qualify it, but maybe it's because, and this is going to this is a real groaner. It's because the incarnation is not being preached. Okay. So what am I saying? Well, is there ever a time when there's a mental health problem that's widespread and everywhere, when we need to think about how, because Jesus became a human, he actually redeemed our minds. And as we meditate on whatever is pure and right and holy, then we actually are given the mind of Christ by the Holy Spirit. And if there's ever been a decade when we need to think about the redemption of the human body from shame and damage and who knows what else, maybe this is the moment. And the reason I'm thinking about this is because I'm trying to preach on the incarnation the next few weeks, and I ran across some Gregory Nazianzus, and he's fighting against Apollinarianism. I'm not sure exactly what that is in detail. I know they denied Jesus is Lord, and they denied that he was human in every way, which is part of the problem, I believe. And so he goes on about how important it is that all parts of the human faculty, the will, the mind, the body, all of these are redeemed, and that from getting that right about Jesus flows proper living and humility and joy and all of these things. And so the easy, hard answer, right, is that the incarnation is not being contemplated.
That's kind of a mic drop answer. I respect it and appreciate it, and you're right. So I'm going to lean in the other direction, and I'm going to circle back to something Isaiah said. This is a time of year where you're supposed to be happy. I'm not really sure how to ask this question. I want to dig into that idea that I'm supposed to be happy, though, and I'm supposed to be happy this time of year. Is that a purely cultural thing? Is it something deeper than that? Any ideas where that might come from? This overwhelming pressure, we all feel it, to be festive, to be happy, and so forth. And I think Jacob is onto something, too, that it's divorced from the incarnation itself, and yet we feel this massive pressure to do Christmas well, to be happy. I can't help but think of, the families. I used to live and work in the inner city, and it was more prevalent, I think, there than it is in other places. But it certainly is true in many, many homes where Christmas Day is at least the day where my parents aren't arguing and where everybody tries to get along. What's going on there? And I think the undercurrent also, even on those days where everybody is getting along, you're just waiting for the next day when everybody's not going to get along again, right? And it just makes everything even more stressful and difficult. What's going on here that we feel this massive pressure to make things right, at least for a day?
If I were to take a stab at it, and it's a deep question, I think it goes to, there's a memory of Christmas, everyone being happy. At least speaking for myself, um, I remember there would be 2 nights every year that I would be so worked up that I couldn't sleep. And one would be the day before the first day of school. It's going to be a new grade, new teacher, maybe there's new kids at school, whatever. I didn't even know that I was anxious. It was just that activity got me going. And the other one really would be Christmas. And I'd be excited to run downstairs with my sister, and we'd open all the gifts. And it was just this explosion of joy. That we would have the gifts, and we would have kids, and we would have family, and I think some of it maybe is, you get older, and the excitement isn't quite what it used to be. But I think it's also just that as uh, culturally, there's something that's been lost. We mentioned fractured families earlier, and I think more and more you have the political divisions, or for those of us, in my own case, I can say a lot of my family doesn't know Christ, and so going to family gatherings with extended family, it gets awkward because there's just a totally different way of thinking about the world, how it's supposed to work. And so you think about family, you're supposed to be unified, connected, related. Your life looks similar. And now everyone's just so different. It's like we used to be a puzzle where the pieces fit, and now none of the pieces seem to fit. I think I'd maybe put it something like that.
Yeah, and I think you're onto something too. You maybe you said this explicitly, maybe it was just implied that things never really were as good as we remember them being, but our memory makes them just absolute bliss.
Childhood ignorance and innocence, something everyone wishes to get back. I think about all the remakes that happen with movies or video games or whatever. So I think that that also plays a role.
There's a lot of wisdom in that. How often is the remake as good as the original? So don't keep remaking them. Make something new. Chester?
Yeah, I think there's so many factors to what's going wrong with our Christmas time. To add to it, I think I think too many people are trying to do too much. That we have, yeah, and there's an aspect of the commercialism around Christmas, right? Like the expectation is that you get the family together, you got to get the house all cleaned, you got to have good gifts, you got to try to make everybody happy, and that's impossible. And then, but yeah, then there's the shopping malls are all full, the parking lots are full, everything takes longer. You're trying to do all this extra stuff and prepare in an already busy season. It's the very end of the year. You're trying to get your last um, dentist or um, physio visits in because your benefits end at the end of the year, and you got all this stuff you're trying to do. You're filling your life with more stuff, and what ends up getting cut out when you add all this stuff is it's often like, are you praying as much as you had been? Are you meditating on Christ? Um, or have you cut back on that to add all this other stuff on? So yeah, I mean, there's part of an issue. We're not preaching. Many places are not preaching the incarnation, but people are not also meditating on it for themselves because they've added all this extra stuff and their lives are too full. They're too busy to really enjoy it.
And I don't want to be too harsh on churches either, because there are a lot of churches that are doing it well. And I also can't get into the minds of the pastors that have made decisions like this. But there is also a trend, even among some of our Lutheran churches, to cut back on their celebration of Christmas to some degree in order to accommodate people's plans and things like that. And I get that. At the same time, it begs the question of, is that wise? And how do we, if we see that trend happening, is that a trend we capitulate to? Or is that a trend we actively work against and try and work in the other direction? That's not necessarily the conversation that we're trying to have here, but it is something that comes to mind. I think it, again, matches the same trend that Isaiah pointed out earlier. And I think it also incorporates what Chester brought out, is this idea of just doing too much. I think, well, actually, it's all three of you. When I stopped doing a true worship service on Christmas, when else do I talk about the incarnation as well? And all of a sudden, my focus shifts from Christ and the incarnation to something entirely different. I will even go as far as to say I know that there are a lot of churches that are moving more toward a song service on Christmas Day. Now, there's also a lot of churches that are doing a great job with the incarnation on Christmas Eve. So I get that. But when you shift to a mostly song service on Christmas Day, again, we're now moving even perhaps you're even singing Christian hymns and so forth, or singing praise songs But we now again have moved our focus away from the incarnation and back towards something I'm experiencing, and it's putting me back in the driver's seat of this whole scenario instead of simply marveling at this holy day when Christ becomes man. Isaiah, you have your hand raised.
I think another way of similar thoughts is there's a push against the natural rhythm of life. And so I just think about, I was talking with one of my members here the other day, and she mentioned the parsonage that I live in. Previously, pastors and principals have lived in it, and she remembers like school getting out and having to wait 2 hours for parents to pick her up, and the kindly principal would say, "Hey, come here, stay in here, get warm," and just people remember maybe a slower rhythm of life. Thinking of our hemisphere, it gets colder, it gets darker, the days get shorter. There's nature is encouraging us to stop, to slow down. You think about like the animals hibernating, and we fight against that, we buck against that, and we instead go into like a dead sprint. So at a time when nature and the church are telling us you need to stop, you need to rest, your body and soul need to just kind of relax. We kick it into high gear, and I think that's also key is that we're not as good at listening to those indicators from our bodies, from our souls. I mean, you think about how many of us have a screen constantly in front of us in one way or another, that you don't have the time to just stop and think or just emotionally process, and it's not even getting theological. That's just the human soul needs time to think, to sit, to soak, and we don't get that in our pace of modern life.
Okay. So that brings us to another question. What is the importance or value of making that intentional time? Isaiah brought up the natural component of this already, that there are seasons in our lives and there are natural seasons in our spiritual lives as well. I think there's something to that idea. This is a perfect time, really, naturally speaking, to be seeking rest. It's also a natural time to be seeking rest for the soul. What's the value in being intentional about meditating on the advent of our King and the incarnation of our Lord?
It's hard because it's so broad, right? There's so much you might say. Some of this is just always true with devotional time, right? And maybe highlighted in Christmas. It's a matter of input. Like, how many messages are you receiving a day, and how many of those are from God, and how many of those are edifying, and how many of those are garbage, and whatever else. That's always true, though, but certainly maybe ramped up, as we mentioned, with the busy season.
Right. My inputs are perhaps reaching a fever pitch, because I was thinking about this the other day. I watch more movies during the month of December than I probably do I won't say the entire rest of the year, but just like stack up all the movies that I'm listening to more music. I'm watching more movies. I'm rewatching my favorite Christmas episodes of TV shows. I'm being intentional about watching new Christmas movies or Christmas movies that I have not enjoyed in the past because other people like them and enjoy them and want to talk about them. Like, my inputs are through the roof. My devotional time is not. And I'm a professional Christian. Like, I'm getting paid to spend extra time in the Word and prepare for worship. And my time in the Word is not increasing. I think you nailed it.
Complicated things are good to think through. And like complicated music, I think you would say, Charlie, is actually very, very worthwhile. It's worth the effort to learn how to understand a complicated piece of music, right? And so when it comes to big theological things like the incarnation, I'm guessing that it would do people even much better to try and contemplate that complicated idea than it would be to understand, say, a symphony.
Yeah. You guys are all pastors. You're all serving in your own unique contexts. What devotional practices or even resources and things might you suggest to believers who want to latch onto this idea and appropriately prepare themselves for the celebration of the incarnation? And really, Advent is our preparation for that. So how would you suggest people better celebrate Advent or observe Advent as we prepare for Christmas?
Would
Isaiah, go
say,
ahead.
uh, thank you. I would say here, it is tempting, and I'm speaking from personal experience. It is tempting to think that you need something big and elaborate. So I'd make an analogy out of it. For some people, cars are a passion. It's a hobby. You work on it. Maybe you have a classic car where the body is all in good shape, but the inside is just totally destroyed. And so you take pride in rebuilding this thing and getting it up and running and showing it off and going to the flows, and it's like your whole personality. And then there's someone like me, where if it gets me from A to B, I really couldn't care less anything else about it. That's what matters. And I'd say with your devotional life, it's the same thing. It does not need to be, doing Compline or Whispers every night, as, liturgically sound as that is, and wonderful. But the Reformation took people out of being monks for a reason. But what we want is what is repeatable, what is doable, so that you want to have a positive momentum, not a negative momentum with your devotional life. So you think about this illustration gets used all the time, but it's because it's valuable. In the same way you need meals every day, you need spiritual meals. And so you want to, again, gain a sense for that spiritual hunger, and then feed it when you notice it. And so I would just say at the very start with something simple, start with something repeatable. And what that is, I'll just give a quick recommendation. I think Advent leading up to Christmas, anything say with the prophet Isaiah, but I'm not just saying that because that's my first name. But I think about like books like reading Isaiah with Luther or other materials that I'm seeing often lean on me. I think that's often a good way to lead up to Christmas, is to lean into those prophecies. So that's my opening salvo on your big question.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point also in, once again, not adding more things to the fray, right? We're doubling down on good habits that we've already, hopefully, have already built in our daily lives. And if you're the kind of person that's listening to a podcast like this, you probably have built a lot of that infrastructure in your own life where you are doing a daily devotion of some sort. Now we're just going to shift our attention to the incarnation itself and the prophecies and so forth leading up to it. I like that idea. I like that thought. And we certainly don't want it to become a law thing, right? Where now I add another thing on top of it, and then I have to be really disappointed with myself when I don't accomplish it. Something simple can help me avoid that turn as well. Chester, what do you think?
Yeah, I know we don't have to be monks to be holy people, but if you did want to be a Lutheran monk, this is how you could do it. This is so if you were to do all the daily prayer hours, as a Lutheran, this is a book to do it. So this is Oremus, which is Latin for "Let Us Pray." It's a Lutheran prayer book by David Kind, who's a campus pastor at the University of Minnesota, a Lutheran. But yeah, so it's and I'm using this for my devotions right now, and they are the suggested Bible readings they go along with the time of the church year. So this time of year, I'm reading a lot of John the Baptist's work. I'm reading a lot of a lead up to Christmas stuff. So it's preparing me. And I'm really only doing about 10% of what this book says I could do. And even, yeah, but it's a really wonderful resource. I especially love the quotes from church fathers to go along with a gospel reading for every day of the week. It's really, really, really cool to see how men from hundreds of years before were looking at these same scriptures at this time of year and the insights that they got from it.
Yeah.
The other thing if we were talking earlier about how people are more depressed this time of year. Like it's like the messaging is that we should be happy. It's just the most wonderful time, right, of the year. But it's not. It's actually one of the worst times of the year for people. So if it's a dark time of the year and a more depressing time of the year that's full of more stress, we need we need more of the solution. So how do you prepare for Christmas? Read the scriptures more. I mean, Christmas is about the word of God becoming flesh. So take in more of the word of God. You're taking in Jesus. So we need more of that. We need more reading of the word and thinking on it this time of year than maybe other times of year. So Isaiah recommended reading Isaiah, which I think also is a great book of the Bible to read this time of year. This is Isaiah 9, verse 2, referring to Jesus entering the world. It says, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. It's the darkest time of the year. Outside, literally it is, and also for our hearts, many people are struggling with depression and anxiety more this time of year. We need more of the light of God. His Son has come into the world. So we need to ramp up our devotion time and our prayer time. Absolutely. That's how we can prepare for his celebration.
Yeah. I like that you admitted that, or maybe not even admitted isn't the right word, but that you even modeled for us. There is so much more even in the book that you're working on that you could do that you're not, right? As somebody who personally, like I'm a pretty disciplined guy, but I have a hard time I've tried a couple of different things in the past. I've tried doing the like where you're praying the Psalms throughout the day, things like that. It just doesn't that's just not the way I'm wired, right? Now, if I was in a monastery, that might be different. I don't live in a monastery. It's really challenging for me to do that. And it became something that was really frustrating for me because I wanted to, right? So for somebody like me, I will pick up, even if I do, because I've done things like I've never heard of the book, Chester, that we'll put a link to the book Chester brought up down in the show notes below. I've never done that book, but I've done things that were meant to be like daily things you do throughout the day, and I'll just ignore what time of day it's supposed to be prayed and just like pray through them, things like that. Feel free to take resources and use them as works for you. One of the other things I like to do is take devotional books. Well, they're all out because so my Christmas books generally are right here on the end of my shelf. There's only one there at the moment just because they're all in use right now during the Christmas season. But many of them have like 3, 4, 5 page devotions or sermons incorporated into them. And I'll just read one of those right after I do my normal daily Bible reading, because I know by the time I get home at the end of the day, especially if I go to the gym or something, I'm going to be tired and I'm not going to want to sit down and read. So instead of fighting against the flow of the day or whatever, I just make sure I find a time during the day where it does work for me. And I keep doing that consistently. And then when I get to a special time of the year like this where I want to add something extra, one of the ones that I'm going through right now is Tim Keller's book, Finding Christmas. Just read. It's an extra 5 minutes to read a chapter. And it's adding to my time meditating on the incarnation, right? It's preparing me for Christmas without being a big add-on necessarily to the things that I'm already doing. It's certainly not a big time add, and a little bit of an emotional add, which I don't think is a bad thing either. Isaiah, you have something to share?
Yeah, I just want to key off of what Chester said. I'm in full agreement, by the way. I didn't complete the thought with my analogy, which is, you start at just getting the flow to run from A to B. Certainly, it's good to build on that and then build the habit up. And especially then this time of year, thinking of what we said earlier, the busyness or the increase in inputs. One of the most shaping things for my mind that I ever heard is that you are the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time around. And what am I doing, especially as a pastor, if one of them isn't Jesus.
Yeah, I like it. All right. What do I do if my church doesn't have Advent services, or perhaps they don't even have really Christmas services? Because that is a trend that's happening. What can I do on my own, or what can my family do on our own to celebrate Christmas and incorporate some worship?
Well, I think that one thing you can do is, if you've got a hymnal, if you've got a Lutheran hymnal of some variety, whether it's the maroon one, the red one, the black one, or the blue one, you can look up the scriptures underneath the Advent hymns in the little margin. And then maybe you can look at the hymn and then try and figure out what it means or read through it. And then you can go back to the Bible and see how do we build this hymn? On what truths has this thing been crafted? I think that's one kind of interesting thing that you could do that's maybe not so common. Of course, you could watch a stream. That's kind of a lame answer, but I think it's a practical answer, right? Find somewhere where they've got a good Advent service and take it in.
Well, it's one of the joys of living in a technological age, as difficult as it can be sometimes. What a plethora of resources we have. Any other thoughts? How can I worship even if I don't have a church to go to?
You think about if you do go to a church, you're going to see the Advent wreath up front. There are Advent wreaths that you can buy, and that can add, again, it does do something to the human mind and soul, even just the act of, say, lighting a candle. And then too, I've only been married for 6 going on 7 months, no children to speak of, but I've heard having a little ceremony like that can be good too, say for the family. All right, we're going to light the candles now. So you do something that makes it special. Or I have to share, so one of Luther's Christmas hymns, "From heaven above to earth I come," he wrote as something of the family Christmas pageant. And so each member of the family would kind of have their part to play, and Luther gets to be the angel, like literally coming down the stairs. You can imagine him singing, "From heaven above to earth I come," as he's coming down. And so it really is, it's not a sin to have fun. It's a sin to have joy. And so, looking to seeing what you can build. And I especially, the Lutheran Church is historically known as the singing church. I beg of you, lift up your voice and sing. That's, that's how you fight the devil. That's how you fight the demons. Unironically, uh, uh, that is a special thing of human beings. Nowhere else in Scripture does it say that they sang. We imagine the angels singing, but the Bible never say they're singing. It says they call out. Human beings sing. And so that's something unique of how we participate with the Word of God. Um, and whenever we can bring that Word of Christ, we know that we are bringing in the light. We are bringing in the hope. And even if we don't feel it immediately, our souls will catch up to what our voices are doing.
One of the most, I've brought this up on a podcast before, one of the most impactful things I've started doing lately is singing almost every day. I have not historically done that. And other than just getting in the Word every day, I think singing every day is, one, is quickly becoming one of my favorite parts of the day. And two, it's having, frankly, maybe as big of an impact on my mood and things as my daily Bible reading. I won't say it has as big of an impact on my faith necessarily, although it certainly does. But boy, is it maybe I'm singing the demons away. I don't know. Chester, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, if your church doesn't have Advent services, mine doesn't. Well, I would be, prepare. Advent is, we're getting ready to prepare to celebrate Christ's birth. I would start thinking, already planning Christmas. Like, does your church have a Christmas service? If it doesn't, maybe find a different church. But even if it just means like, you're even traveling a little bit further to go to a church in the area that does have at least something for Christmas. Because Christmas is about God coming to earth, to be here in person with us. So, don't certainly like get ready to celebrate Christmas not by worshiping online or from afar, but gather with Christians, be in person at church, and celebrate Christ coming here in person, in the person of Jesus. So yeah, I would already start planning, like, what are you doing on Christmas? Already think ahead a couple weeks down the road and plan that out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I don't know why I didn't think of that. It's so simple. But it's true. If my church doesn't have a Christmas service, go find a church that does. Even if that doesn't mean I go become a member there, there are other churches that will have a Christmas Day service. I like that. Isaiah, you already got into this a little bit, and I want to dig deeper. All four of us can throw in on this. What practices and traditions could be introduced into the home in order to keep Christ at the center of our Advent and Christmas celebration as a family? I love the lighting of the Advent wreath idea. I think, especially if you have family dinners, what a cool little thing to do. Be lighting the candle as you get closer and closer to Christmas. What else? Or maybe even add to that if you want, but what traditions can we add in as a family to help us prepare for Christmas every year?
I think anything that's going to say help you count down to Christmas. 'Cause there should be a joy in the day approaching, and we think about Advent is liturgically purple or also blue, being a royal color, penitential, but also blue has the hope as we look to the skies, thinking of the second coming. So that in any kind of countdown, whether it's I remember as a kid having like paper rings where you pull one off every day, or there's Advent calendar things, or uh, uh, I've seen things where it's like a felt Christmas tree and you add pieces to it. Uh, Tangible touch things like that. And then I'm in part as a pastor brain thinking of for the families, but even just it doesn't matter who you are, to have something that you acted out so that it's not just we're not just minds, we're bodies, we're in-fleshed creatures. And that's what Jesus became too. So there's things you act out. And so I'd recommend too, uh, you can reflect that too in your posture when you're having whatever your form of daily devotions are. Maybe you're going to make it a point to get on your knees when you pray. Maybe you're going to head to the window and look up to the sky, direct your thoughts, or if you have some piece of sacred art, whether it's a crucifix like the one that I'm wearing, or an icon or a painting, so that you can make it even the home can be a holy space. We talk about home worship as building a home altar. Uh, and I feel myself pushing for something exciting or a silver bullet, but it really circles back on everything we've already been talking about, that incorporate it into your life, and Christ, where the road is, he works, he succeeds. He came to save you, and he will continue to come each time you open the Bible.
I think this time of year you have the perfect, like a couple of different, like really perfect items for that, right? You've got a Christmas tree covered in lights and so forth. And the more you talk about the symbolism of the Christmas tree also with your children, the more that ends up being an attraction, right? Something that you can gather around. Same thing with a creche, right? A nativity scene of some sort. You've got it on a living room table or on a buffet in a dining room, something like that. Something you can gather around to have conversations about what's coming. I like that. Jacob, you have something to add?
Well, in my family, I started a tradition with my grandfather called Shrimp Feast. And so every Christmas Eve, we would have what amounted to like a bunch of junk food on china, on nice plates. And shrimp, of course, had to be on there. And well, what this would do is we kind of get two parties, right? And I know people do this. It's not like this was unique, but they have like kind of the hors d'oeuvres or the after church party on Christmas Eve. And then you got the whatever you do on Sunday morning, right? Or Christmas morning. But as I'm thinking about this more, I'm thinking we got to treat Christmas Eve like it's New Year's Eve. Like maybe we're not doing midnight mass. Maybe we could be, but we're not. So maybe we could do like fireworks and prayers and think about the shepherds, I don't know. But now I want to do fireworks at midnight because it is like Jesus is here. And we don't have angels with glory in the sky, but we do have, I can make a staff if I need to be a shepherd. Like,
Just
just
sure
make
they're
it
the
big.
proper
Have fun.
liturgical colors.
Yeah, of course the staff will be liturgically colored purple, or blue. I don't know. Like, I think because maybe especially from people of our stripe, right, with worship being reverent and a little more reserved generally in Lutheran circles, and maybe that's all very good. Well, maybe we should do something that's not in the worship service that's really exciting and loud at midnight. I, I'm talking myself into this idea as I explain it to you. Shows you how new it is. That's my thought.
I love it. And it lends itself to the next question I was going to ask. What secular traditions can be redeemed to the Christian cause? I like fireworks. Fireworks could certainly be redeemed to the Christian cause. Isaiah, you were making me think of this. I hadn't actually thought of it, strangely enough, before the podcast. I wrote a series of letters called The Letters from Father Christmas, which in a way, it's not really Santa Claus. He makes himself clear that he's not Santa Claus, but redeemed a whole bunch of Christmas traditions and pointed them back to Christ. Everything from the pickle ornament to the stories of Santa Claus to Christmas lights and sugar cookies and everything along the way, right? All of these things can be tools by which we teach our children what's coming. And by teaching our children, it's also on our own minds and hearts and lips as well. I don't think sometimes we forget just how impactful it is on us to be teachers. That certainly is true as well. So just finding ways to take things you just like to do and you want to do at Christmas time. You want to go ice skating. You want to drive around and look at the Christmas lights. While you're driving around looking at all the Christmas lights, talk about how light has come into the world, right? That's an easy thing to redeem, right? What other ideas do you guys have? Secular traditions that can be redeemed to a Christian cause?
I'm of the mind that, like, this is a mindset more than a thing you do. Like, anything that's not immoral can be redeemed. And so, like, think of your life this way. The Christian life is the time being redeemed. All of it. The world is reborn as people believe in Jesus, and creation starts over when you know the truth. And so that's everything. I don't know. I think anything could be.
Similarly, I think it's hard in that historically, Christmas traditions arising, if it's in the past, is going to come from a culture that was more Christian. And so as I hear that, I'll admit mentally I'm like Rolodexing to think of what are Christmas traditions that look Christian, as my mind like thinks music. Well, of course we have Christmas music. Giving gifts, well, that doesn't have to be some awful covetous thing. I'd agree that it's the mindset. It's uh taking that season and decorating not just your home but your life with it.
Bringing me back to the Christmas Carol again, right? Learning to keep Christmas well and keeping it all the year.
Yeah.
What about secular traditions that ought to be abandoned by Christians? The first one that comes to my mind is Santa Claus. We don't need to have an in-depth conversation about Santa Claus. I think that could probably be a podcast all its own, maybe next year. But what are some things that we do that maybe should be tossed to the wayside? If there are, in light of what we just said, perhaps there aren't any. Any that come to mind for you, though?
The only thing that comes to my mind right away about Santa, and again, this doesn't have to be the whole discussion, but is just don't lie to your kids. Maybe I don't have kids, so maybe I'm speaking out of my depth, but I think you can talk about Santa in a way that's maybe fine, appropriate, fun, whatever. But I don't want to try and tell them someone exists when they don't, when plenty of people in the world are going to tell them Jesus doesn't exist when he does, right? So I don't want to mess with that trust. Maybe that's kind of just what I think. I don't have kids, but
I think of it like superheroes, right? there are certainly some folks who go too far with the superheroes, where like kids really do think that their favorite superhero exists, and there's no question about that. And then all of a sudden, one day they find out that their favorite superhero doesn't exist. I don't see that being a whole lot different than Santa Claus. At the same time, you don't see a lot of Christian families or parents saying, "How dare you have superhero action figures in your home?" Right? There is a way to do it right and well. Yeah, that's I kind of put those two things in the same category. Let's treat these two things the same in a similar way and have them be healthy. Chester, you had something to add.
Yeah, I liked Jacob what you said about the mindset. I think we have so much freedom as Christians. Our whole lives, all of our time is being redeemed for the Lord. So I'm not sure if I don't. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Don't lie to your kids. I would say anything. If there's, we talked about part of the problem with a big holiday time like Christmas is that we're trying to do too much, and we're so stressed out about getting all these things done so it can be just perfect. If I would try and like figure out how many traditions can you actually do without going crazy and being stressed out, and okay, just and abandon anything that it may not be wrong, but if it's too much and it doesn't allow you to just sit and ponder like Mary, like who treasured these words and about Jesus in her heart, if it doesn't allow us to do that, well, then abandon it, right? Whatever it is, whether it's we're not going to give gifts this year. We're going to give the gift of our presence. We're just going to spend time with family, right? I know a lot of families have done that. Like whatever lets you just sit and enjoy Jesus, and be less stressed out, and do it, right? Abandon whatever is too much and just keep a few things and enjoy the time.
Isaiah?
So I would say I had much the same thought that whatever's too much on your plate, that's what can be pushed off. Or two, if there is something that you find is getting you agitated, if it's the 24/7 news cycle, if it's the political going on, well, you can turn that knob down, and you can incorporate a little more Jesus in. I think too. It's hard to find the right way to say things sometimes. Don't make such a big deal out of everything being picture perfect. If this Christmas is not recapturing that childhood spirit, that is okay. Christ redeems even an empty Christmas. Christ redeems even one where what's on your mind first and foremost are the empty chairs at the table, or the divisions that have not been healed. And I would say where we cannot bring ourselves to Christ, there he cannot come with his healing word, with his healing touch.
Yeah. Courier and Ives makes a lot of money about painting perfect Christmas scenes. Let them do the painting. You don't have to. Chester?
Yeah, you ever have a thought that you wanted to say and then it just slips away?
Only
Fair
every day.
enough.
I just did.
All the time. All the time.
Come back to me later.
Say not, why were the former days better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask this. Ecclesiastes 7:10.
Okay. Amen.
That's
So
just
with
what
all that in
Isaiah
mind-
saying that just made me think of it. That's all.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. And it's always wise and pleasant and appropriate to be throwing scripture back on top of the things that we say with authority. That's always a good thing and a blessing. With all the things that we've just talked about in mind, what would you, or what are some things that you, and it looks like Chester got his thought back, so we'll toss it to him first, I guess. But with all these things in mind, what are some things that you're going to make sure you are including in your holiday season this year? We'll start with Chester. Feel free to express yourself first. whatever you lost a minute ago, and then you can go ahead and talk about what you're going to do this Christmas.
Yeah, and this is going off directly what Isaiah was just talking about. We think we have in our minds this picture perfect Christmas, all these. What we need to do is we need to think about, okay, what is a win? What is a W for Christmas? And really, like, what is absolutely and strip it down to what is absolutely necessary. Christmas is about God coming here as the person Jesus to save us, so that he would, we're celebrating the newborn King, and he came here that he would rule in our hearts by faith, and that we would live with him forever. If you win at Christmas, not if everyone gets the food that they want and the exact present that they were hoping for, or whatever, that the house is perfectly clean when everyone arrives. If you can do those things, that's icing on the cake. But what is absolutely necessary is for us to believe in God's one and only Son, who came here as Jesus to save us. If you have Christ in your heart by faith, you've won at Christmas, because that's what Jesus came here to do. He came to rule your hearts by faith. And if you got that and you have worshiped Jesus, that's a success. That's a win. I mean, that's a wrap for Christmas, and anything else is icing on the cake. So if we strip down expectations, just if we can do that, we've succeeded at Christmas. And if we can do that our whole lives, we've won at life, right? So, like, again, make sure, like, just do the necessary thing. Anything else is a blessing. The other day, we had a nice, like, I had a nice dinner with family planned. And as I was coming home from church, I walked home. There's a lady with two kids, like a baby and a small child, walking down the road, and it's like minus 15 degrees Celsius. It's cold. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's what, 10 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's cold, and the baby's screaming, and she's like got her phone out, and she's like hunched over, like looking on the ground on the sidewalk. And I'm like, oh no, something's wrong. Looks like they lost something. Kids are screaming. I invited them inside. The lady didn't speak English. I don't know what was going on exactly. I know that she lost something. Eventually found out it was her keys. But like our nice calm evening was ruined. But instead we got to invite someone in from the cold and let their kids warm up a little bit while the mom got her head back on her shoulders, and went back out to find the keys. She was locked out of her house in the cold Canadian night, right? But like, we don't know what's going to happen at Christmas. Who is going to show up, and how the family gathering is going to blow up or not. We have no idea. So we got to be ready to roll with whatever God gives us. If we can believe in Jesus and then show the love that he gave to us to each other, whatever way we can, that's a win.
Clip it, put it all over the
I was
internet.
going to say, gosh, I love you.
Yep.
And this is the Grand Slam.
Nothing more to say.
All right. That was lovely, Chester. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. It is a blessing to sit at your feet for a few minutes while you preach, brother man. I love it. Okay.
Brother man.
I am going to start this
Don't mean
off.
to preach at you.
No, please. We might be the choir, but we love to hear you preach. I'm going to start this off by just saying I like to pick an album every year and try and kind of make it my... See, the thing is, I don't pick an album before the Christmas season starts, so I have to find one, which means I got to listen to tons of music. And so a couple of years ago, I came across an album, and I found out later that some friends of mine actually really enjoyed the album also. But I came across the album "The Light Came Down" by Jess Carols. It's just a nice, very calming, quiet Christmas album, and it's just a wonderful Christmas album that he has put together.
That's a great Christmas album.
There's something to be said. There's something to be said for the art that goes into creating a whole album. That's like one genre and one piece of art. It's really cool. But both 2 years ago, And then also again last year, I remember putting on that album in my at a point where it becomes overwhelming, and when you're at the SEM and you've got like the Christmas concert and you've got the last couple of weeks of class and all that stuff that's just going on. There was a day at both years where I just sat down, put it in my earbuds, and looked at the Christmas tree and enjoyed. I don't know, it's probably an hour, 15 minutes long if you listen to it end to end to end, like all the songs. Just relaxed and enjoyed a few quiet minutes, thinking about Jesus, enjoying my little Christmas tree, and just being still, right? So that's something I'm going to find an opportunity to do sometime between now and Christmas Day, perhaps even again after Christmas Day is over, especially since I know I'm going to have some time to relax actually this Christmas, because I'll be hanging out here, right? Christmas is Wednesday. I got Monday and Tuesday. There's no school. There's no nothing. I'll have some time to do that. So that's something I'm going to make sure I do this Christmas. I don't have a nativity scene. I'm kind of missing it. But that would also be a thing that I often make a centerpiece of my personal Christmas celebration. What are some things that you guys are going to make sure you do include? It could be anything from like books and movies to music and decorations, things like that, that you're going to make sure you include in your Christmas celebration this year.
Every year, starting this year, I'm going to read The Christmas Miracle of Jonathan Toomey, because that book is so beautiful, and you bought it for Chester's family, and I got to read it. Wow, what a good story. It's all about why it's the joy of Jesus that changes everything during Christmas, and maybe teaches some contemplation of the manger scene and how wonderful that scene is.
My favorite Christmas book.
Yeah, it was really good. My goodness.
Well, now I'll have to pick it up. So it seems I'm the only one who hasn't heard or read that one. A recommendation I can give that I like to do is listening to Praetorius's Mass for Christmas Morning. You can find that if you just like search it on YouTube, and it is just, now granted, I know German and Latin, so to the extent that I can pick up the words in the music, I can understand it. But it's just glorious and beautiful. And if you're a Lutheran, you'll recognize some of the tunes in there. And you also hear parts of the liturgy chanted, like the words of institution and so on. And it's so well put together and just captures the glorious joy of Christmas. I'll also mention, I didn't this year, but last year as I was getting ready for Christmas, especially thinking Christmas Day, I'm gonna be the hard line. Christmas Day, you preach John 1, you preach the incarnation. I think it'll take something big for me to not do that every year. But last year I read Athanasius's On the Incarnation, and just a beautiful work. For one thing, it's worth. C.S. Lewis wrote an introduction to it, which is basically why you should read old books more than you read new books, or at least as much. And that introduction alone is worth picking, and I'm sure you can probably find a free PDF on the internet or something. But that introduction is good, and the work itself too. It's a different perspective, talking about the kind of the central picture is, if God created us and you have mankind connected to God, the fall has connected us, and it's almost like a plant withering. It's eventually going to disappear. And so then the incarnation is like Christ reattaching God to humanity and the life that comes in. So just a beautiful picture of salvation. Uh, I'll also mention I'm just joyfully excited to have my first Christmas with my wife, and all the wonder and joy of starting up our own traditions. And the Christmas tree that's up this year is a gift from some members, and same thing with the little nativity set. And I'm sure one, if not more than one, will invite us over, and just having a day to after going to Christmas Day service, celebrating the Lord's Supper, taking in those gifts, proclaiming the good news of the incarnation, and then just deflating like a balloon the rest of the day and being happy for all the people God has put in my life. That's that's the Christmas I'm looking forward to.
I'm also going to say anybody that had Isaiah says read the early church fathers on his bingo card, go ahead and mark that one down.
I think guilty as
Awesome.
charged.
I love it, Isaiah. I love it.
I also
Chester,
have
you had
to
anything? Oh, go ahead, Isaiah.
one quick other mention is two pieces of Lutheran fiction. There was a Swedish Lutheran pastor, Bo Girt, and he has a wonderful book called Hammer of God about it's the same rural parish, but three different pastors who start their ministries there, and each time you jump forward an era in history, it a good chunk of the novel is set around kind of Christmas, wintry, so it's a fitting read for this time of year. He also has one called Faith Alone, which is that same place, but we rewind all the way back to the time of the Reformation, and that too just has some wonderful insights into the gospel and the freedom we have in Christ. So I think those are also two that I didn't this year, but in future years I would intend to pick up around this time of year.
Awesome. I'm actually adding, like, as I speak right now, I'm adding that to my Amazon cart.
Fantastic.
Chester, you got anything you want to throw on there as well? Not on my Amazon cart, but on your Christmas celebration.
Well, yeah, while we're talking about things you could buy me, yeah. But no, as for movies, gotta watch Die Hard.
Amen.
No, just kidding.
Talk about a Jesus figure, right?
In some way, not a mother.
He's not invited to the party, and yet he arrives in an extraordinary way to save the day. It's a story of Jesus.
It does happen at Christmas. But no, in reality, yeah, music. Really enjoying different versions of O Come, O Come Emmanuel this year. I know Skillet's got like a hard rock version of it out that just came out last month. I've been enjoying for King and Country's O Come, O Come Emmanuel. Our own Lutheran Synod's Koine's got it pretty decent. O Come, O Come Emmanuel. I love the chains in the background, sort of dragging, symbolizing the captivity we have to sin, and how Emmanuel, God with us, is coming to rescue us from that. So yeah, a lot of Christmas music. I love listening to King's College, their 9 Lessons and Carols. I think there's an old version, one of their older ones is recorded and you can watch it on YouTube. But I'll listen to any excellent choir singing Christmas music. St. Olaf College, their Christmas stuff is excellent. Yeah, a lot of music.
If no one else had mentioned it, I was going to mention King's College as well. It streams for free live on National Public Radio or Minnesota Public Radio every year. You can get it online. I think it'll be 10 o'clock Eastern time. I don't know about, so it'll be 7 a.m. your time, something like that. And I don't know. I probably got my time zones wrong. Doesn't really matter. It's beautiful. It is worth listening to every year. Plus, you get to hear the little kids sing Once a Royal David City. It'll melt your heart every time.
Gotta listen to Twisted Sisters, Oh Come All Ye Faithful.
Oh, go. Oh, yeah. Yes. It's so repetitive and so good.
Yeah. The rest of the albums, it's fine. But Oh Come All Ye Faithful, to the tune of We're Not Gonna Take It, is incredible.
And it's so, it's unironically fitting.
Yeah. And they put the cowbell in, and it's just well done. It's just good.
Yep. I have to say, Adeste Fideles maybe is my favorite Christmas melody, or Greensleeves, one of the two. We are just about out of time. Yeah, Greensleeves is excellent. We're just about out of time, fellas. Thank you for joining us today. Chester, thank you for taking some time out. Isaiah, it's always good to see you and see your face. Jacob, you've been on a bunch of different times, and it's good every time. So thank you, fellas, for being on the show today. Special thank you to all you guys for joining us. If you want to be part of the Gird Up mission, you're in the right place. Hit follow or subscribe, leave a rating and a review, and share this episode with someone who needs a community just like this one. If you'd like to support the work we do here at Gird Up, consider a cup of coffee donation. Go to www.girdupministries.com, select buy us a cup of coffee, and help us flood the internet with confessional content. And if you've got questions, topics, or guest ideas, send them my way through the link in the show notes. All of that, like I said, is down in the show notes below or on the website. This episode was the result of someone sending me an email and asking me a question about how to keep Christmas right. So thank you to those of you who are faithful fans who keep writing in and asking for specific content. God bless you all. God bless you three gentlemen. Merry Christmas. And I can't wait to talk to you again next time.